All right, welcome to the podcast. I'm excited for today's guest. We have on writer, producer Theresa Kelton. Thanks for being on the show.
Hello. Great to be
S-
here.
you've got a couple cool projects coming out. You've got Harriet the Spy, which is on Apple TV Plus. You've got Flight of the Navigator with Bryce Dallas Howard. You've got Prophet, hopefully coming out with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
So this is pretty amazing. Your whole slate. So can you kind of walk me through your origin story and talk to me about kind of what brought you into this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually started in front of the camera. I started out, I was homeschooled for most of my life. And when I went into public school in high school, I got really involved in theater and in public speaking. I think a big part of that was it was very helpful going into public school after being homeschooled. I had a lot of anxiety, and both of those things gave me this really cool way to kind of escape and become different characters and just deep dive into different topics and communicate with people in a really interesting way. So I got involved in that in high school. I took that on to college. So got a major. I majored in theater, acting, and journalism. And while I was pursuing, theater and acting in college, I wasn't landing a ton of the theatrical shows that were going on at my university. So I said, well, I really want to put this, to work. I really want to exercise this muscle. So I hopped over to Austin, Texas, which is right next to my university at Texas State. And I got involved in an independent film company. I was very lucky to get involved with a great group of people who were sort of trying to do the micro budget independent film thing in Austin, had a slate of films they wanted to do over the course of a few years. So I started working with them. I was a background actor at first. I was an extra in a few scenes. And then I would just continue to show up
Yeah.
and on set and say, hey, if you need a PA or someone to hold the boom, it was like very, very, very independent, very scrappy.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so I would just, eventually I think they said, this girl is not going anywhere. So they, they were kind enough to bring me in and asked me if I wanted to be part of the development process and pre-production process and post-production and sort of trying to find distribution strategies and just the whole gamut, whatever they
Yeah.
needed. And so I just dove into it, and I ended up being a part of 10 feature films with them over the course of
Wow.
5 years, which is crazy in retrospect. That's quite a lot for a micro
It
budget independent
is.
film company.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did a lot of independent short films. I directed a couple of short films. I was a DP for a short film and found out
I
very,
bet that
very
was cool.
quickly. It was really cool, but I also was like, this is not the job for me.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
had so I had so much more, respect though for cinematographers and DPs after that experience though. And I think I think it's great for people who are like, getting into film to try every aspect of it, because you really, start understanding what pieces you really love,
Yeah.
what parts you don't love, but now you have the experience and an appreciation. And so you can probably better communicate with someone who is in that role.
Yeah.
Audio is something else that that I don't love, but I have so much respect, and audio is so important,
Yeah.
as I learned. And I just, so anyway, I got involved in all areas basically in that production company. And then, after about 5 years, streaming was sort of starting at that point. So Netflix was really starting to hit.
Yeah.
Um, the distribution model was really challenging to find. Micro budget independent film is already so difficult. And when that landscape started changing, I just decided, we had gotten into the Austin Film Festival, and it was one of the biggest festivals we've gotten into. And
Right.
I was like, what, this is the moment to sort of take the next step into my career, whatever that's going to be. And I honestly didn't really know what it was going to be, but I knew it was just time to kind of have a change. And so at the top of 2015, I moved out to Los Angeles.
Okay.
I was still pursuing acting and jobs on the production side. I was looking for everything. The acting thing was quite challenging in Los Angeles, as you can imagine.
I bet.
And I had come from like a troupe of actors. So, I had this very tight-knit group that I had been working with for a long time, and the shine of it just kind of wore off. And so after about 6 months, I was still pursuing the acting thing. I had done a job I had a great uncle who lived out here. Super kind. He reached out to me through like the grapevine of hearing through family that I was out here. And he was a construction supervisor who worked with a lot of studios, Paramount specifically,
Okay.
and was working on a movie called The Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. If you remember that movie.
God, I think I've seen it.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
decent. I
It's a
think
comedy.
it was a comedy, yeah,
Yeah.
but it was rated R, and I think that it should have been PG-13 because I think
Gotcha. They
more
missed their
teenage,
audience.
they missed their
Yeah.
audience a little bit, but yeah, he had to do pickup shots for it, and it was like an 8-week gig. He needed a construction coordinator assistant, and he was like, if you want to drive up to Santa Clarita, which is like 45 an hour away from where sort of central Hollywood is, from like 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and help the guys check in, do the union paperwork, and do all of the inventory for all the things that they need. And I said yes. Like it was kind of like, this is exactly what I was trying to get into when I moved out here, is just being able to be around movie magic.
I just love how you've done everything. It's really interesting to me because you're not the first guest I've had on who ended up getting onto a project and worked whatever they were hired to do and then showed back up on set and
Yeah.
just did everything. I had
Hmm.
one friend of mine who used to describe himself as a fungus because he would just grow on you. And I think it says a lot though if you keep showing up and you keep showing you're passionate and committed, it really can open up opportunities for you. And it sounds like you have that yes attitude, which is a winning attitude. And so I'm not surprised that following your trajectory has brought you to working with somebody like Bryce Dallas Howard because you're making opportunities happen. You're not sitting at home. You're not um, just querying every producer out there waiting for that golden ticket. You're literally going out and making the opportunity. You're forging the connections on set, and I just hope people listening to this hear that that's a solid way of making things happen.
Absolutely. I just, because like one of the things that happened on this particular job, as I'm like riding around a golf cart up at Sable Ranch, making sure the guys have what they need, is I met a lot of different people. One of the guys I met, I eventually was in a short film for him. It was one of the only acting things that I really like did in Los Angeles in the early days.
Yeah.
And it was awesome, and it was fun. And I keep up with him today. And you I mean, one of the biggest parts of this business is connecting with people. And, I think that just feels like a scary part because it's like networking and like, oh
Yeah.
God,
Right.
networking. And I think that I sort of had to reframe that in my mind too, of just like, oh, this is just, and especially coming from being homeschooled for so long, I didn't have, I was probably like really awkward and weird for quite some time, and probably still am
We
kind of
have
awkward
so
and weird.
much in common.
Yeah. And but I eventually have like just kind of, you're connecting with people and you're
Yeah.
finding how you vibe with them, and it
Yep.
doesn't have to mean that you like that moment that you meet them that you're gonna just find the project and make it happen, like that's not what it's about. It's about
No.
just just
It's an earnest, honest connection.
mm-hmm,
If you're
mm-hmm,
networking with someone because you're looking for your next meal ticket, people see right through that. But if
mm-hmm,
you're meeting someone, you're earnest and you're honest and you're genuine, people
mm-hmm,
notice that.
mm-hmm.
And those are the people that want to help you.
Yeah. And if you're genuinely interested in what they are doing too. I mean, one of the things that I found very quickly is, especially in Los Angeles, is people will just, they'll want to network, but they'll want to just know what you can do for them. And I always felt like,
Yeah.
that's such it's not the approach that works. I find, the approach that works is to really like try to be interested in what the other person does, even if it's something that you're not necessarily interested in, or you never thought about before, or and it's just about making connections. And
Yeah.
then it's amazing then, like, you just start finding these nodes in your network, like, oh, this person actually knows this person and they're connected to this person. It starts getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And then you find, I'm someone who really likes to put big pieces of puzzles together. I like to assemble the teams. And so I love hearing about what other people do and what their skill sets are and what they love to do, what their passion is,
Yeah.
and putting them together with other people and trying to make things happen.
That's cool.
Yeah. So yes. So I did that gig for a Scouts Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. I was there. I, watched them rebuild these sets. I watched them load them into location. I got to watch them shoot the reshoots, and it was just an amazing experience. It was 8 weeks and it was over really quickly. And then, I think the movie, I went and saw the premiere because, my great uncle was kind enough to invite me as his plus one.
Oh, that's
And
pretty cool.
yeah, and it was just fabulous to come to Los Angeles and be part of a movie, even though I was, very
Yeah,
small and
for sure.
in whatever. But so after that, I was unemployed for a few months, and I had a roommate who was an assistant over at Rehab Entertainment. And she kindly was like, I will put you up for it, if you give me your materials. And so I did, and I ended up having an interview with the principal, who's John W. Hyde, who is now my producing partner. And one of the things that I think John really liked about me right off the bat was that going back through my, all the experiences I had, that I just had sort of tried to find and create opportunity. And I
Yeah,
had done lots of independent film. I had
so
done,
cool.
yeah, I had just been, I wanted to do something. I wanted to make movies, and that's what I had been doing.
I just want to clarify because
Mhm.
I apologize for interrupting, but I just I know for I mean, I don't know your history personally, but I know people that have gone through what you're doing as an indie producer working with a scrappy production company. It's not necessarily paying your bills. You can be having a full-time job on top of that. And so you're pulling 60, 80-hour work weeks. And I think it's really important for aspiring writers and producers out there to know that, like, you get that job, like you land that producer role at this small indie production studio. It doesn't mean that all your bills are paid.
Yeah,
You're still doing side hustles.
I worked 2 to 3 jobs at any given point during that 5-year
Yeah.
period, on top of doing, and any vacation time I had went to shooting or went to promoting at film festivals, which was all fun. It was a lot like
Right. Yeah.
vacation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of dedication to something that, wasn't my full-time gig.
Yeah.
I had to really balance a lot. And yeah, I think it was really good for me to go through that, because it did teach me, like, oh, if I am passionate and I love something, I know that I'm going to be able to balance and strategize and find the way to do it.
Mhm.
Which is, it's always nice when you sort of discover something about yourself, and it's something like that, like, oh, I can make this happen, even if it feels really overwhelming. So I think, yeah, it's definitely something to keep in mind if you're getting involved in very independent film.
Yeah.
That it's not all glitter and glamour and cash flowed. and on the flip side, I completely understand people who are like, I have to get paid in some capacity.
Yeah.
1000%. Like, we're all in different, not everyone has that ability to
Right.
do what I did, or um but yes, I'm glad you brought that up, because I often, like, I don't really talk about that part, because it's like, oh no, I was making movies and it was great, but yeah, I was also working in a bank, I was working in a
Yep.
boutique, I was working in a spa, like I was working
Right.
in so many places.
And can I ask you, because I see a lot of developing writers out there, producers, and they don't want to do the extra jobs. They don't want to do the second job because they want to define themselves as a writer or producer, and maybe they can't do that if they work in a bank, or if they have some day job somewhere. And I even knew of a writer who gave up everything and spent a year writing and ended up homeless,
Mm,
because he
yeah.
thought, if I just give up everything and I just focus on my writing for a year, I'll make it. And I'm just like, um, it doesn't work that way. So I really feel, and I'd love your take on this, that you
Hmm.
define yourself, but whatever you choose to define yourself as. So if you're the producer that has three other jobs, if you're defining yourself as your producer, that's your passion, drive for life. That's what
Hmm.
you call yourself.
Right. Yeah. I very early on realized that that the path that I was choosing was never going to be, um it was never going to be easy for people to put me in a box. And that
Yeah.
is a lot of times what people want to do. And
Hmm.
then that feedback loop to you as a human is like, oh, I need to be perceived in this way for them to take me seriously, because that's what their expectation is.
Right.
And you're just never going to win if you're going after someone else's expectation. That's
It's
just never going to
brilliant.
work.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like, even to this day, like, I've jumped back into voice acting, into some performance stuff. I'm 34 years old and I haven't been acting in 5 to 6 years. And people are like, oh, like, I thought you weren't an actor anymore. And it's like, I was never not an actor. I just put it on a back
Right.
burner while I was
Yeah.
doing this other thing. And like, I also don't, it doesn't have to be, it's something you can do and enjoy it. It doesn't have to have this people are like, oh,
Yeah.
well, how are you going to be Scarlett Johansson if you're 34 and it's like, I'm not trying to do that.
Right.
Why is that what the journey has to
Ah,
be?
you're so wise. It's just like, man, I love it. It's just, you really are like, what I'm hearing is that you don't have to let other people define your sense of self. Like, you are what you want to say. And also what I'm hearing, and please correct me if I'm interpreting this wrong, is that you determine what your own successes are.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I
That's
mean,
brilliant.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's important for, if you're, sometimes people want to just define themselves as one thing. They want to hide, if they didn't come from the best background, or
Yeah.
like, those kind of things get in the way. And I just just very early on, I mean, there were a few years when I definitely tried to hide that I was from a tiny town in Texas and didn't come from like a multi-million-dollar family like everyone
Yeah.
else feels like happens in Hollywood with, nepotism and that kind of stuff. And the only
Sure.
way you're going to do it is to fake it and fake it and make it.
Right.
Um, but that wasn't what I wanted to put out in the world. I want people to know, like, my journey was not that. And there are lots of people working and having a great time in their careers and in their lives, which is the most important. And are fulfilled human beings, and they're completely honest about where they're from and what they've done.
Yeah.
Again, you just, especially now in the world of like TikTok and Instagram and the more social media that's out there, it's great. But the downside is, I think, more pressure to feel like you have to be something that maybe you're not. And
I really agree with you. I actually, it's so funny that you say that, Teresa, because I watched a late night viewing of Infinity Pool last night,
mhm,
which is a head trip because I'm going to cover it later today, as a film analysis. So I'm walking out of the theater, and there was 5 girls blocking the hallway to leave because they're busy trying to do a TikTok performance. And a part of me was really sad because I know that they're trying to define themselves as this. They're not doing it for fun. They're doing it for likes. They're doing it for shares. Um, and and part of me makes it. I was just sad about that because when you're trying to do that, you're not trying to find your authentic self.
Mhm.
And so, and I know that this is part of like this is kids' journey, right? This is they're gonna go through this journey in their life where
Yeah.
they're gonna discover who they are. So this is part of their journey. But it made me think about when I was a kid, um, emulating things that I wasn't and
Mhm.
trying to live up expectations from adults that had for me that I didn't want to be. Like I was supposed
Right.
to be a lawyer, and I
Mhm.
didn't want to be a lawyer.
Right.
And so I never did all those. I don't like to argue, so it's not going to
Right.
work out if I'm in if I'm in a court. So, but I remember being defined as somebody who I wasn't, and so seeing that really played out more visually on these social media platforms, it hit me. And so, yeah, I think you being a girl from Texas, from a small town, um, I think it's so important for someone like you to own and display that and to show like this is where you can become, this is who you can be,
Mhm.
even if you're not from nepotism, because there is going to be some girl somewhere listening to this show or discovering you somewhere and seeing, well, this girl made it, I can do it. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm dyslexic. I'm a
Mhm.
dyslexic screenwriter who's won awards, has sold scripts, and has stuff happening.
Mhm.
And for me to come out and say that, one, was risky to my career. Who wants to hire a dyslexic screenwriter? Do you get a
Mhm.
discount? And the other thing is, it was important for me to do it, one, to be true to myself, but also for anybody else out there who's neuroatypical,
Mhm. Yeah.
like me, like my family. We're
Absolutely.
all
Yeah.
quirky in this house,
Yeah.
um, that they can do it. And so, yeah, I think it is so important to be honest about that. I'm sorry to go off on a tangent, but I
No.
just felt the urge to discuss that for a moment.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I'm still very I have bouts of imposter syndrome that, that pop up and like depression, and I mean there's the anxiety,
Oh yeah,
it's not
I'm
it's not
checking. I'm checking all those boxes right now.
yeah, like and everyone, I think everyone on some level experiences at least some scale of those things, and but feels like they can't talk about it. And so I'm
Yeah.
very open about, if yeah, there are times when I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not, I've been doing this for almost 8 years in this working with rehab entertainment, at least, and almost, my goodness, almost 15 years just in general filmmaking and being part of that. And there are still moments where I'm just like, oh, do I not know what I'm doing? Like, am I crazy for doing this? Um, it's real
I'm the
life
same way.
thoughts, it's just real
Yeah,
thoughts that
man.
happen. And you just kind of have to move through those thoughts, and they're intrusive, and they're
Well,
not reality.
as the president of the Imposter Syndrome Club, I will send you a card for your registration,
Thank you.
and we'll send you a swag bag.
Perfect. Yes, yes.
It's filled with
um
antidepressants and SSRIs. All right, so um,
so
I'm
yeah,
really
I was in, I'll just finish up sort of the origin story, I
yes,
guess.
absolutely.
When I met with John, again, I think he really liked that I came from this background of just jumping in and saying yes, and trying to make stuff happen. And his career had spanned, many years. He had done big family fantasy sci-fi movies like Short Circuit and Flight of the Navigator, a
Oh
never
my
ending
God, I love.
story.
Yeah, those are great.
Yes, yes. And had also been the head of Film Roman, which is an animation company that started The Simpsons and King of the Hill, and
Okay.
He's vice chairman of the Jim Henson Company board, and so was also involved in a lot of kids content. So there was also, he had also had this diverse background where he kind of jumped into a lot of different things and just sort of took opportunities as they came to him. And I think that he, you know, he kind of saw that the same sort of vibe in me. And after about 6 months of being an assistant, it was, you know, we just worked together so well. And he was like, I'm really looking for someone to, you know, kind of continue on after I'm not here, you know, which, you know, won't
Wow.
be for many years, but
He's mentoring you though.
yeah.
That's dope.
And that is a lot that, I mean, I consider that, and the position that I'm in currently, you know, it is a lot of luck. But it was also a lot of, you know, I had worked really hard to get to where I was, and I had this experience, and I had said yes to a lot of, you know, crazy things. And you know, sometimes those moments of luck are also you know, just your preparation and
I
your
don't,
experiences landing right at the right time.
yeah, I'd agree that because I don't believe in luck.
Okay.
I think luck
Okay.
is opportunity. And I
Okay.
think someone like yourself who has said yes to so many different opportunities, taken advantage of it, and is talented,
Yeah, thank you.
then it's going to happen. So yeah, I think luck is opportunity that's earned.
Yeah.
Um well, your origin story has turned into this show because your origin story is fascinating. And I really do appreciate your time um and discussing all this. So Harriet the Spy is right now,
Yeah.
it's on Apple TV Plus.
Yes. Yes.
And tell me about Flight of the Navigator.
Sure. So Flight of the Navigator, you know, obviously was one of John's legacy projects from the 80s, kept the underlying rights. And so we were able to take it out and pitch it around, and it landed at Disney.
Wow.
And it's been a really great experience over there. We're with Justin Springer, who's a producer from Tron. He did the live action Dumbo. A fantastic producer. And last year, Bryce Dallas Howard signed on to direct, and so we're now in the process with her of getting the script that we want, and everyone's really excited about it. It should be her directorial or her feature directorial debut, which is very, very exciting.
That's
And
awesome.
she's great. She loves the IP. She loves, you
She's
know, she,
so good.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
crazy.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So hoping that by the end of this year, that one will have some big news, you know, about going into production, hopefully in 2024. And then Harriet the Spy, like you mentioned, which, you know, Harriet the Spy is very special. It's the first show that was greenlit for us during my time at Rehab Entertainment. So it will always have a special place. But it was also a book that I loved, and I loved the Nickelodeon movie when I was a kid. And so when it was pitched to us, it was a kind of a crazy, I think I like blacked out during the pitch, because I was like, there's no way that this property is available, you know, like how is Harriet the Spy available, and how is it being pitched to me right now? And you know, we took it over to our partners at the Jim Henson Company, and sort of just talked about what an adaptation of Harriet the Spy would be today. And you know, a lot of my job, a lot of the projects that we develop now are adaptations.
Okay.
And it's really fun because you have to really dive into the original IP and sort of rediscover what was beloved about it initially. And so going back and reading Harriet the Spy, the book, and learning more about the author, Louise Fitzhugh, and, you know, sort of what she was trying to say in that book.
That's cool.
And then listening to, you know, a 50-year legacy of this book and people who read it and what they take from it. You know, a lot of adaptations previously had focused on the spyness of it. You know,
Right.
Harriet's a spy. And ultimately what we really what we really uncovered and decided to dive into is that she is a writer. Like she wants to write. And so spying is just a way that she learns the world and learns about people.
Yeah,
And
that's cool.
yeah, and that was a really, so it's very different than any other adaptation that you see out there. It's also the first time it's been animated. Titmouse Animation did it, and they did a fantastic job. It's got this very cool
Yeah,
sort of
I like that. I
retro.
like that. It looks cool.
Yeah, it's got this really great retro feel to it, but it also kind of feels like a 90s. It reminds me a little bit of Hey Arnold, which was one of my favorite cartoons growing
Yeah.
up. But just a very grounded kids in the city vibe, learning about real life and, being very open about being scared about certain things, being, or being very imaginative. And it's just it was a delight to work on. We had a fantastic group of people. I had never done animation before, obviously, so I relied a lot on our producer Sydney Clifton, who's a fantastic animation producer. John Hyde, obviously, had been an EP on some of the greatest, animated adult stuff and kid stuff that we'd seen.
How many seasons are we looking at?
So this will be the second season. The
Nice.
next 10 that will drop on May 4th
That's cool.
will be a second season, and the first season's already out. And then, fingers crossed that
Yeah.
we'll get more after that. But we followed the book really closely.
That's cool.
And it's just very, Beanie Feldstein is the lead, as Harriet's voice, and Jane Lynch is Oh Golly, and
Oh,
just
wow.
a ton of other amazing voice actors in it. And it was greenlit in February of 2020. So we did it all the production was
COVID, eh?
done through COVID. So all of the
That's
voice
amazing.
records were through Zoom.
Yeah.
And it was Beanie Feldstein in her mom's shoe closet, like trying to figure out the voiceover equipment. She did a fantastic job,
That's
but
awesome.
it was a wild ride. But yes, Harriet the Spy is very special, and I'm very excited about the next 10 coming out on the 4th of May.
Well, Teresa, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a real pleasure. I have quite enjoyed this.
It's been fun. Thank you so much for having me.